case anybody wants to, it was suggested by one of the members of the delegation that we do everything on Zoom in case there's people at home that want to watch it, so. We're on Zoom.
It's live streamed on YouTube.
Oh,
I think Peter Schmidt is assuming now.
I'm sorry?
I think Peter Schmidt said he's.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Bill, what I'm doing, I know this, so I'll do it with my. Thank you. I think everyone here who's planning to be here.
Kelly Sunset is on her way. We're all coming from Concord for Clever Little Lake.
There are others coming, you think?
Just her and I.
I know you're just coming down, yeah.
Yes, so she's on her way.
So they can join us when they get here. We'll wait till you sit and we'll take a notice. So let's get my vegetable.
There you go.
Yeah, we had that hearing. Really late. We didn't get out until.
We all have the materials. Well, you got the yellow.
I brought the whole bunch, like, you got a lot of paperwork on this. That's right. Yeah, am I ready?
Oh, you're home, so if I have to record that. Okay, I think we've got just about everybody here. We're gonna open the meeting to the Riverside Restaurant Subcommittee. And Janet Hilber is going to read us the official notice and do the attendance. Thank you, Janet.
This is a scheduled meeting of the Riverside Restaurant Subcommittee on Wednesday, February 8th, 2023, 6:30 p.m. here in the Cafe Conference Room of the Justice and Administration Building, lower level, 259 County Farm Road, Dover. This meeting is to review portions of the Stratford County Commissioners 2023 budget for Riverside Restaurant. The roll call. Anchorberg. Anchorberg. Bickford.
Yeah.
Burnham. Here. Howland.
Here.
Payne.
Here.
Lanier is excused. Fair.
Present.
Say Kelly is on her way to Kendall.
Yes, she is.
11. Not on Zoom, that way. That's
Nobody on Zoom.
Wall
Here.
and extras that are here. Kelly.
Is everyone done for? Okay,
Tuesday.
if you're using your yellow book instead of the written material given to us, we're starting on page 23. And I'm going to ask Ray Bowers, please give us a brief overview of the nursing home so that we know exactly where we're starting and where we're heading.
Sure. Just quickly, first of all, I want to avoid the shock of looking at the administration budget. To let you know that later on in the budget, there's hundreds of thousands of dollars in decreases. And what I've done is moved stuff into administration. When our nursing home rate is determined by Medicaid, it's broken down into 4 different categories: nursing, administration, other, which is like laundry and maintenance, and capital. We don't have much capital because all our buildings are old and they've already been capitalized. So as much, it's in our best interest in terms of reimbursement to move things out of nursing and move it into administration, because there's a cap on the level of reimbursement. We still have plenty of room in the cap under administration. We don't have room in cap under nursing. So whatever I can take out of nursing, as you'll see when we get to nursing, is like a $400,000 decrease. So whatever I can take out of nursing and put it in administration, is better for our next year's reimbursement, or when they count this year's, which is a year or two down the road. So I just wanted to mention that to avoid the sticker shock of the first thing you're gonna look at. The second thing, one of the bigger things that we've done last year into this year is enhanced our behavior unit, which for those of you that went on the tour, we did see that behavior unit. The state in turn raised our behavior unit reimbursement to the sum of $400,000. The total amount of $400,000. Because they are, and I don't think this is going to be a big, well, it might be a secret to some of you in the legislature. They're trying to close Glencliff. Glencliff is the state-operated home for behaviorally challenged residents. And they want to close Glencliff, and they simultaneously want to get people out of the state hospital. So a number of the people that are in Glencliff and a number of the people that are in the state hospital can be managed on behavior units in the nursing homes. And they're willing to pay us for it. And we about 20 years ago agreed to take the eastern part of the state. Hillsborough County takes the center part of the state. Cheshire County takes the western part of the state. And that's how so we might have a lot of the residents that we take are from the state hospital who really have no home. I mean, they weren't home anywhere. They've been in the state hospital for a long period of time. So I can't tell you they're from Stratford County. I don't know that. I'm not sure, wherever they had a home. They certainly never lived independently. So that's why you see that administration went up. There's two employees, myself and Brianna, whose salaries are based on 50 hours a week, not 40. That's factored into our salary. And primarily with me, because I'm also the county administrator, meaning I supervise the whole rest of the county, including the jail and all our finances and all the other things that we do that most counties don't do, or some do and some don't. And Brianna, because of COVID, really, she'll work, when COVID's prevalent, it's nonstop. It's literally 16, 18 hours a day. I'll be getting emails from her at 4 a.m, 3 a.m, 2 a.m, telling us what our status is and where we're at. So we decided, Brianna and I decided that rather than trying to keep track of her time and, figure out overtime there's no way she could take other time off. She had to postpone her wedding because we were in an outbreak. But she was kind enough to do that. I'm not sure how well her husband thought of that.
I spent more time here.
Yes. So anyway, that's the way our salaries are based. Otherwise, everybody else, the department heads are salaried, but that's based on 40 hours a week. So that's kind of just a brief overview. If you look at the Riverside revenue and you look at the increase in Riverside expenses, they're about offset. So there's no increase on the tax rate as a result of Riverside. What we have done is focused on beating McDonald's for our nurses' aides. When you go in and you see a sign that says McDonald's that pay is $17 an hour and our nurses' aides make $15.50, we can't compete with that. So this year, the direction from the county commissioners to me was compensate the lower paid people differently than we compensate the upper paid people. So the lower paid people made out a lot better, obviously our nurses' aides, so that we can compete with the market. And I just use McDonald's as an example, happens to be one of my more favorite places to eat. But so I'm not saying anything against them. It's just a fact of life. that's the way the economy is now. And it's impossible for us to pay people $1.50 less than they could make flipping burgers. It's just not possible. So that is included in that budget. And really what offset it was an increase in our reimbursement rate and an increase in that reimbursement rate from the behavior unit. So when you combine them, they're just about a no increase on the tax dollar for the nursing home. So what we normally do at the direction of the chair is we go budget by budget. We did send you the budget last week. I'm sure you guys are so busy that you probably didn't have the opportunity to take a look, but we printed it with all of the backup. You know, so everything that we've asked for, you'll see in the budget. Brianne and I are here to answer questions, and Dougie's here to answer questions about maintenance, which is, I will tell you, not my strong suit. So if you know there's questions about capital and things, they're all things that were submitted. Appreciate this. There's more things in capital that we need to do at the nursing home until the delegation makes a decision about what to do with the nursing home situation that we're in. We're not dumping any money that we don't need to dump into that building. Maybe we will need to in the future, maybe we won't. But at this point, we were doing things like replacing the countertops in the residents' rooms where their sinks were. We were doing 1 unit a year. We stopped. Because there's no sense in doing it if we're not, you know, if the decision by the delegation is something different. So we kind of only recommended the capital that we really need to do. A little frustration on Doug's part, I think, on occasion, but I think he'll live with it. He'll live with it. So the first budget is administration. Again, you'll see the big increase of that $168,000 is me moving people into administration. When we get to nursing, which is just a couple budgets after, you'll see a $400,000 decrease in nursing. And part of that decrease is we changed the way in which we are admitting people. Through retirement, we moved our admission person over into billing. And we took one of our nurses and moved them into admissions. That way it saves us. So when the nurse gets the call from the hospital, say, or it could be home, or it could, lately it's been other nursing homes that want us to take people from them. Probably a third of our admissions come from other nursing homes, you know, in the area. Most of the rest come from hospital, and still a handful come from at home. We still, believe this or not, have people urinating in buckets. They don't have indoor plumbing in their homes in Stratford County. I know that's hard to believe, but that's still the case. And frequently protective services will get involved, and then those are the people that we tend to admit to Riverside, because the private nursing homes, and this is nothing against them, I don't mean this at all, they just can't afford to take care of these people because Medicaid doesn't reimburse us, you know, the full costs. So that's why 97, 98% of our people at Riverside depend on Medicaid as their source of payment, not private pay, or not Medicare, or a rehab period. Because if we took those people on a aggressive basis, I don't know how the private homes would survive, because that's their main source of revenue. So we understand our role, and I'm directed by the commissioners to, if somebody can be cared for in a different setting, we'll take those people that can't be. That's the reason for the nursing home. So you'll see, these are the salaries of people in administration. I'd be happy to answer any questions about anything. We're audited every year. We have 4 labor unions here on the complex. the nursing home has a labor union, the jail has a separate labor union. Those were in place before I got here. And the sheriff's department has two labor unions, one for deputies and one for administration. We've settled all the contracts with the four labor unions and given an equivalent raise to the non-union employees, perhaps just a little better, only because we don't want a fifth labor union.
Right, there are certain things common to every portion of this budget.
Yeah, everything, like, things like social security, obviously retirement, workers' comp. Now, workers' comp might change because if you're clerical, you're at a much lower rate than if you like work in nursing. Then that's just simple statistics. We are generally our workers' comp rate through Primex, which is our insurance company is substantially lower than the standard rate. So it works out. Primex does all of our workers' comp, and they do all of our property and liability. So we I've only had one lawsuit in my 35 years at Riverside, so we're doing pretty well, and we won that.
And you won that one.
We won that one, by the way. Actually, they never pursued it.
Thank you. David, did you have a question?
Yes, I wanted to ask, if you have private pay, we're doing that, what would you be charging?
Well, honestly, when you compare our building, when you compare our building to other buildings, I don't have the heart to charge people like the going rate at Langdon Place or, some of the other places. So we charge $280 a day for our private pay, and they're up well over 300, 350 in some of the other places. I just can't, I can't make the comparison.
You're finding a way to break even though.
Well, we would, except we'd be on the verge of putting other places out of business too. So we want to be careful that we recognize what our niche is. And you're right. I mean, I could advertise for private pay, but places like Rochester Manor, Dover Rehab, St. Anne's, all would be in pretty bad financial situation if we fought them for the private pay clients.
Well, I'm thinking, does that come out to be your cost? You're on a per pay.
Pretty close.
On a per person, actually.
Yeah, pretty close. That's pretty close to our cost.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, cool on that.
Yeah, we actually make a little more than that on the behavior unit. It's like
Yeah.
$287 with the new upper rate that I just gave you, for those 20.
You said it was an additional $80 per.
Right, and we're about 211 for the standard Medicaid rate.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, well, you remember, right? I mean, you were in the legislature. The legislature appropriates the money for Medicaid. And you all do when you do the state budget. And then the state then cuts that rate 30%. So we submit our costs, okay? And the state then goes in and says, this is how much money we have. And they look at the difference, and they call it the budget neutrality factor. And so they cut us 30% of actual costs.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they've done it for,
When you say that, it was at Health and Human Services,
well, from what I've been told by Health and Human Services, they put in the actual cost every year. And it gets cut through the budget process to, that budget neutrality factor. Now, I'll be honest with you, I've never seen, I've only seen the governor's budget and then the Houses and the Senate, as they wrangle through the budget process. And I mean that in the nicest way. I'm not saying that in a nasty way. I've never seen the budget that was submitted to the governor from DHHS. I'm not privy to that. But I can tell you that Lori Shibinette, who recently retired as Commissioner of Health and Human Services, and I were colleagues. She was the administrator in Merrimack County, so I've known her for 20 years. And she told me that they submit the full cost, and then it's up to the governor and the legislature how to make that, how to pay that out. Now, remember, the counties, right, pay the vast portion of the non-federal share, right? we pay about 95% of the non-federal share of Medicaid, which is, somewhere else in this budget, not for your committee, but someone else in this, so one of the other budget committees will review. It's not much to review, right? It's what the legislature tells us we need to pay. And then our share of the pie. Right? It's not an equal share. I mean, obviously the bigger counties pay the bigger amounts. It goes based on usage on a rolling 3-year average. So we pay right around 9% of the 124 point something million that the counties are assessed in the state budget that you all vote for.
That's our proportion.
Our portion is between 8 and 9% of 124 million.
You mentioned that you're sort of deferring some maintenance or rehabilitation of facilities. Is somebody tracking that somewhere? Does it appear in the budget?
No, it doesn't appear in the budget, but I can assure you Dougie's tracking it. I know when we walked through the kitchen today, they wanted to move the ceiling tile so you could see the rusted pipes that are in between.
Yeah.
The other thing that's happened, and then we all know is going on, is that over the last number of years, we've had 2 water/sewer breaks with pipes under the foundation. They're they were built into the cement when the building was built 50+ years ago. The problem we have with that is we have to jackhammer it out, and then we have to keep going back until we can find a solid piece of pipe to hook onto. And then we can hook on both ends. So one of the areas that we walked through, which I had mentioned, was, there's our boiler rooms, there's, laundry. That area, the rooms on the left, as we were walking in, the sewer line broke there and we had to trace it back like 20 feet. Dougie, was that you were here then, right? Yeah. And we had to jackhammer it out and put it in. About 6 or 7 years ago, we lost the water line leaving outside the building right as it had left, and we had to dig that all out with the help of the city, and it's because of broken pipes. I mean, we're getting there. I mean, there's no reason to think that the pipes, the cast iron stuff, is that what it is? Yes. The cast iron pipes that we have there underneath the facility, there's no reason to think that the cast iron pipe that broke where I just told you is any different than the cast iron pipe that breaks anywhere else. So we're kind of, I wouldn't say we're like putting chewing gum on there, but it's inevitable that we're going to have more of that as time goes on. That's,
Is that visible in the arguments for the new complex somewhere?
I'm sorry.
Is that part of the?
It's part of the reason for.
Yeah, but is that documented somewhere so that people that don't want to spend the money can say,
Sure.
It might be better to spend money here than.
Well, it's the same as the asbestos. It's the same as the PCBs. It's the same as no air conditioning. It's the same as 4 fannies on a toilet and 47 people to one
care
tub.
about that sort of thing.
My job's to present information.
Yeah, but
Your
I
job's
just
to
want
vote
to
on
make sure
it.
that this particular part of information, everything.
One of the handout, we're dealing with the administrative functions and goals of the nursing home as well as Hyder House, because in 2015, we did take over Hyder House, and that's all explained in your paragraph on your first page.
Which hand up you looking at?
Pardon?
I can work off any one you want.
Oh, the other one? Okay. I got a lot of handouts.
Yeah.
Page 23 in your yellow book.
Okay, that's where I
It's the
am.
same as your handout.
Yep. Okay. Well, there's more in the handout.
So I'm using the handout. I'm gonna use it.
I'll follow you.
Right.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want.
No,
They're the
I
same.
want to do what you do.
So there's the,
So on this one, you gotta understand the administrator isn't getting paid a bundle of money. The administrator of the nursing home is also the administrator for the county doing 2 jobs. So that's fair pay. As I looked down through it, I didn't see an awful lot of changes at all. I thought overall, the whole budget seemed to be pretty level funded.
well, when we said that, the clerical, secretarial/clerical, that also includes admission. So that's where we're paying our admission nurse instead of a clerical person to do the admission, who only then hands it off to a nurse. It doesn't seem to make much sense. So when that position became vacant, we moved the clerical person into billing when that person retired. And then we put a nurse into admissions, because when she gets the call, she can go out herself. And because we don't admit anyone without seeing them prior to coming in. Perhaps there's been occasion where the hospitals fibbed to us about the condition of one of the residents that they want us to take. They just bold-faced lie. And so we only now go out and see the resident physically before we take them. It helps us in two things, helps us know where to put them in the nursing home. And simultaneously, it helps us to know that the hospital has done everything they can that we might not be able to do because we're a nursing home, we're not a hospital.
Can you explain to us the vehicle lease that we're not doing anymore?
We own it. The sale lease is really not what we do anymore. We used to lease the vehicles with ownership after 3 years. It's now leasing interest rates are much higher than purchasing interest rates. We can purchase vehicles at 2%. And they want 4 and 5 for leasing. So what we've done in the last couple of years, and it's most notable with the sheriff's department, because they have more, obviously, a turnover of vehicles. But basically, we own the vehicle, and that's our resident transport van. So when we take residents out to doctor's appointments, hospital, we have 2 residents, Bree, on dialysis, 2 or 3.
3 right now.
So we have 3 residents on dialysis, so we need to take them to the, frequently, we need to take them to the dialysis center. Fortunately, it's just like we're not far from where Liberty Mutual is. And then we need to pick them up and bring them back.
Are there any questions on the administration function and goals page? Yeah.
Yes, so my understanding is the administrator is one person
That's me.
and you are 2 or 3 roles here.
It depends which county you look at. It's 3 roles in some counties and 2 roles in other counties.
So your role is,
The nurse, I'm the licensed nursing home administrator.
Yep.
And I also do, I supervise the operation of the jail and all the other functions. I supervise the financial
what
operation.
are the other functions? I'm sorry, other
Sure,
functions of the jail?
No,
Okay, so other
community
functions-
corrections.
Right.
I'll just take the budget and list them off for you. Could I borrow your yellow book for a second?
Yeah, so the reason why I'm just asking is it's all being tied into this line item.
That's correct.
Yes.
That's correct.
So there's nothing taken out of the other
There's,
budgets for those, okay.
no, when we file our Medicaid cost report, which is, we have to file that, that's how our rate is determined, part of the way. We deduct 20% of my salary and make it non-reimbursable. But it used to be confusing when a part of my salary was located somewhere else. Because some members of the delegation had a feeling like we were trying to deceive them. So we just decided, it was a number of delegations ago said, just put it all in one place. So that's my salary all in one place.
Thank you.
And that really hasn't gone up a lot over time.
So if you look at everybody here, I supervise all of these things, except the separately elected officials. I only supervise them, their finances. So when it comes to the sheriff or the register of deeds or the county attorney, I supervise their finances, not, I don't supervise the attorneys, but technically the clerical people work for me. And the register of deeds, not the deputy, but all the other people work for me. Although we usually just kind of let those elected officials manage their own people because they, obviously work with them day in and day out. But that's based on case law.
Is that it for the administration?
There's been quite an increase in the clerical, secretarial clerical staff.
Yeah.
And The reasoning for that?
Oh, I moved people, remember I mentioned I moved people out of nursing and into administration for better reimbursement. When we go to nursing, a couple of budgets, you're gonna see it decrease by $400,000.
So this reflects that.
This reflects that.
Okay.
It's gone, you'll see nursing's gone down $400,000.
Okay, good, thank you.
Any further questions on the administration part of this? Yes,
The secretarial clerical staff, so for that line, how many people does that entail?
I knew somebody was gonna ask me that. That's why I brought this book. Hang on one second. I'll tell you in 1 second. It is 13 people.
yes.
So in the big book, it does say under fees and outside services, Diane configured, are those numbers, available or are they placed elsewhere?
All right, I can, yeah, I can tell you the breakdown. Let me just tell you what that is. The way this county operates, we prepare payroll at the nursing home and then send it over here to the courthouse to administer. So we pay the courthouse or pay a portion of the courthouse's salaries because I can add that to administration and get reimbursed for it under Medicaid. So that includes our finance director. It includes Janet, the young lady that's standing right there, and it includes Jill. We have 3 people in our finance department for the county. A percentage of those people based on the number of checks that are cut. That's how we do it, so that, because when Medicaid comes in audits, they want to know, well, why did you pick that number for those people? So what we do is just, they've agreed to allow us just to pick based on the number of checks. So 64% of the checks that are cut on behalf of the nursing home, whether it be employees or whether it be purchase services, food, that kind of thing. So 64% of the cost of their salaries and benefits gets charged to the nursing home. You will see on the revenue page, it comes back in as a revenue in the exact same amount. So it's kind of a switch of hands, but it allows us to claim it as a cost for the nursing home. And that way we get, it's included in our administration reimbursement rate.
Are there any further questions on this first section of the budget?
I have a question on the
Sure.
courier service.
Yeah.
Why is it 0 expended?
Because during COVID, there's not that many outside appointments. For one thing. Also, we've been using the courier service a lot for testing. For COVID testing. Brianna has the ability to train certain people like myself and our courier people. So it's not, we'd be breaking the Medicaid rules to charge it to courier when they're not doing courier things. Now, though, we're back doing more outside appointments because, COVID is not as prevalent as it was in the past. So we're back doing a lot more outside appointments. The other thing is, we've also, to some extent, use, video medicine. So we'll do some of those appointments instead of going out to the doctor, they'll do it via video.
Yeah.
Primarily, our psychiatric services, except on the behavior unit, there's a different psychologist for there. I'm sorry, psychiatrist for there. Our psychiatrist for the balance of the facility does it via video. And that, saves, he can see more people in the same amount of time.
So do you think that you need to go back to the courier service if you've been functioning without it?
Yeah, because we're now back to outside appointments. We're back now to, just today there was 3 or 4. So there's a lot more doctors now that want to see people, in the office instead of worrying about them getting, spreading COVID when they come. And they like it from us because they know we test our people. So we're more likely to provide for them a patient that's COVID-free, and they have a higher level of certainty that it is because of how much we test. So almost nobody does it via video anymore, except our psychiatrist. Bree, did you have something to add?
Yeah, and just for example, like orthopedic doctors weren't seeing anyone during COVID, like eye doctors weren't seeing anyone during COVID, so a lot of those appointments were being canceled from those providers, now those are all.
And we're like catching up with that too, so we're having, you know, a greater number of appointments than we had before COVID.
And I just have one more question.
Sure.
So the expenditure just goes up to September 30th. When would we might see the?
By the end of this month, we leave about 6 or 7 weeks for last year's bills to come in, so that we're not accruing anything more than we have to. When our auditors come in March, they don't want to see a lot of accruals. You know, they like the money to be paid out. So when we try and leave the books open as long as we can, it makes the auditors happy.
And so
And
when you look at that middle column, that's not what last year, that's about 3/4.
that's 3/4 of last year, although it's accurate to 3/4. There's no reason to believe that the last quarter is going to be anything more significant than 1/3 of the prior 3 quarters. But I will have those numbers for you.
We'll have it by the time we do our final.
Oh, yeah, you'll have it long before then. I'm trying to push to have it by the middle of February.
Representative Bickford again.
Can't you do your accounting so you go back and give us September to September?
The problem with that is it won't yield you accurate salary information, because, you know, there was salary adjustments made as of January. So that last quarter will look under expended.
Yeah.
So I think it's actually better within a week or so I can get you, you know, the balance, certainly before the budget goes to the executive committee and the full delegation, you'll have full numbers.
Okay, moving on. If you're using your yellow book, you'll be on page 25. Management Information Systems, we call them MIS.
Now, MIS went up, really, I guess the easiest way to say it is a few years ago, we got hacked. We were fortunate enough to catch it quick and stop any of our information from leaking out. But we've made a real focus through our insurance company to follow their guidelines to enhance our firewalls in the county. So that's really what you're seeing here. Now those firewalls are for the whole county. That's not just the nursing home. And when we got hacked for the whole county. Fortunately, we didn't lose any data and we had insurance. But you know, the insurance company pretty much said, you got to do these things if you want to continue to have coverage. So we ended up doing those things, and that's what you see here is primarily for that purpose.
Changes in this one, right? Is everything pretty much about the same?
Except for, you know, the fees and outside
Fees and
services,
outside.
which again is the firewall. You know, we obviously purchased that service and again, that covers the whole county. It's not just the nursing home.
So is that the whole county's fee, or is,
That's the whole county's fee.
okay, so some other units are paying us for having done this?
Well, what we end up doing is we will watch it as part of our Medicaid cost report, and it's just part of the general fund.
Okay,
Was that, which one is that? What line?
229.
229.
Oh, okay.
So of our $76 million budget, that is the cost of operating our computer system. So everything that we do with our residents at the nursing home is all computerized. Those of you that took the tour saw the nurse passing medications using the computer. All of our statistical information that we have to submit to the state of New Hampshire and CMS, the feds, all has to be done via computer. There's all of our, that's the system that's been set up by CMS for reimbursement purposes. So we actually work with a company, then actually 6 other counties do it too, and a number of other private nursing homes use that same software for that purpose. It also does all our billing for the nursing home is primarily out of that software.
You'll notice that on line 0.281, it seems like a big number, but if you look, for those who are not familiar with how we do our budget, if you look down at the bottom, you'll see the explanation. The line 281, equipment repair and maintenance, and tells about repair maintenance of equipment not covered by service agreements, the printer and copier service contracts, PC and network parts and maintenance. That's a lot.
Well, we have over 200 computers, you know, in our operation between obviously every department has a computer. So we have our heating and cooling is done by computers. Our, everything we do is computer operated. So we have over 200 units, that are covered.
Very impressive. Are there any questions on this section of the budget?
I don't know.
Yes, please.
So on 268, this might be a silly question, but
No, nothing.
268 telephone it says it's included in line 229. So why do we still have line 268? I'm just curious why it's done that way.
We're actually, what we try to do, if there's any money spent out of it in the prior year, we have to keep it. But because there wasn't, we could actually just have eliminated that line. We just didn't. I didn't catch it, honestly. And there's probably a few others of those in here too. But you're right, we could have just, you know, wiped the line out.
Are we all set on the MS?
So that also, by the way, runs our phone system. Not just computers. It also runs our phone system.
Good point.
And
Does that help with cameras and everything like in the restaurant?
it runs the cameras. So the cameras for the jail, and it runs the cameras for this building, which we've certainly become more security conscious than we used to be in the past, with everything that's, unfortunately, it's a state of the world. And so you can, for those of you that have come to this building a number of years ago, like Representative Bickford, and come now, you see that we've made some substantial changes in the security of the building.
A lot of changes since it.
Well, I mean, our deputies were, somebody could just walk in and they were defenseless, you know, with who manned the security stations. Now, at least there's some protection.
I remember in the olden days, long ago, we could just walk into the building to any office we wanted to.
Any door, anywhere you want.
That was convenient.
Yeah.
You couldn't have that
I know. Are there any other questions on the portion of the budget? Okay, if not, we'll move on. And again, in the yellow book, you're on page 26, the purchasing function goals. Can you talk to us about that, right?
Yeah, it's pretty well a flat budget. Purchasing does purchasing for the entire county. So they'll do food, everything from paper products, you know, stationery, but we don't do stationery. Nobody does stationery anymore. Purchasing is everything from food all the way through. And actually, the young lady that heads purchasing is our longest sitting county employee. 42 or 3 years she's been here. So.
Before you were born, that's not the date. This next portion is always a little interesting on the dietary department. Can you talk a bit about that? Oh, by the way, it didn't smell good.
I have a question.
Sure.
I can see, sorry.
So can you just give me an example, like this is for purchasing everything, so throughout the entire county, so
Yes.
jail, nursing home,
Yes.
everything?
Yes.
Okay.
Includes, you know, everything from food to, you know, unusual products at the jail that we have to supply inmates by law. You know, like little, we don't do toothbrushes, but you know, there are different kinds of things than you would normally see. It's not like a toothbrush you get at the drugstore. And, you know, toothpaste and bar soap and laundry soap and just everything that you could imagine in our operation is done through purchasing.
So every prisoner, their food, you're saying? that
Yes.
too?
Yes,
Okay. All
Yep.
the cafeteria, every.
yes.
All right.
Yeah, again, the 000 are calling my attention. So for this, you have 229 and 109. Where did they, what are, and where did they go? It's zero now.
Again, those two items, like, we could have just cleaned out. You know, and there's
What
some,
did they used to be?
they used to be like from, if there was a health insurance contribution, say we had somebody working on a grant and the grant contributed something towards their health insurance, we would show it as an expense and as a revenue so that we could properly account for it. So that would be one example. And fees and outside services now, you know, absorbed by maintenance.
Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, how many people are under the longevity?
Two. The longest employee and a part-time employee.
And when does that usually start? Because some people don't understand what longevity is.
Sure, it starts, if you're a regular employee, it starts after year 3. And it's $25 a year, up until year 20, at which time it's $25 a year plus 1 week's pay. And I'll tell you why. The union asked for an extra week of vacation, and we said no, because we couldn't spare the help. So instead, as a compromise, we paid that week after 20 years. If you are a department head, you get your longevity starts at year 5 and it's $50 a year.
Okay. I don't know what longevity is.
It means we've worked here that long.
I think it's paid extra for long.
It's paid, we're paying long-term employees.
So sometimes longevity is in replacement of a raise for some, depending on that, but this is in addition to a raise, and then because they've been here for a long time, it's almost like a bonus.
Yeah, $25 a year.
Yeah,
Or,
big bonus for
Yeah.
that, but for 4 years, obviously, you're getting a week's worth of pay.
yeah, that's exactly right, if you're here more than 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said there's only 2 people that are in that right now?
In this budget,
Portion of it.
yes.
Okay.
Yes is the answer. And that's probably one of the reasons why I mentioned that the person's been here 43 years.
Actually, we're kind of lucky to have people stay around.
Well, we have a good number, a good amount of seniority. We're fortunate in that
Any
respect.
more questions on that section of the budget? Okay, the next one, again, is the dietary department. Again, it's always very interesting, right? Can you tell us how you saved and what you've done to manage the food portion of the budget?
Well, you know, for any of us that go to the grocery store, you know, we recognize what's happened to the cost of food. We've managed by the fact that we have one purchasing department, and they might call somebody, so one of the vendors will call in and say, I have 2,000 pounds of chicken that I need to move. Do you want 2,000 pounds of chicken? I'll give you X rate on the 2,000 pounds of chicken. Now, we can hold that quantity because we have, for those of you that made the tour, I told you we had a big outside freezer. So we can keep that amount of chicken for a long period of time. Remembering that we make 2,000 meals a day between the nursing home and the jail. We make about 2,000 meals a day. Now, what you're seeing here is only the food cost for the nursing home, not for the jail. This also includes those residents that are on specialty diets, you know, that require dietary supplements, usually to build, and I'm not sounding sexist here, but usually women have more tendencies for osteoporosis than men do. So we supplement their diets accordingly to prevent falls and fractures, things like that. But it could be also extra calories for people that choose not to eat. We use dietary supplements for that purpose. We use dietary supplements for people that have a hard time swallowing, and they can really only take liquids in as opposed to, a standard meal. So we use quite a bit of dietary supplements. For those of you that went on the tour, I actually pointed that out. I said, see that locked area? That's where we keep our dietary supplements. We keep it locked in that area. So I thought it was pretty good that we kept the increase down to about 6%. I think when we go to, I wish my grocery bill was only 6% higher. The thing that's been killing us lately is eggs. That's a tough one. We're trying to do the best we can to manipulate the menu, but eggs are so much part of these residents and their age. It's so much part of their life. They grew up with eggs every morning for breakfast, and it's hard to keep the residents and families satisfied and make substantial changes in the diets. And eggs just happens to be something that comes to the surface. We used to have a pretty big egg farm
I heard something.
in
last
Stratford
week.
County, but that egg farm doesn't operate any longer.
I heard something last week, and that we used to pay our debts with money, now people are paying with eggs.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
yeah, that's one of
I
our
was
bigger
impressed with
costs.
that when I saw this portion of the budget, I was surprised that it didn't go up more. And I know that you have ways of buying the food at remarkable discounts, and yet it's.
And that's been our trick to, that's the advantage of having one person in charge of purchasing, is that these entities have a place to call and say, hey, look I have this deal, we need to move. I keep using 2,000 pounds of chicken. We need to move 2,000 pounds of chicken. You can take it. I'll give you X amount off per pound. And that's helpful to, keep the budget in check.
Wait, I've got a question. Last week or the week before, when we had a series of heavy duty snowstorms and
Sure.
a lot of places lost electricity. I heard that, one grocery store, I think it was Market Basket.
Shaw's.
Is that who was?
Yeah, it was
Had a
Shaw's.
real problem.
Yeah, they lost all their meat and all of their milk products.
Did we have any trouble with the county?
No, well, we lost nothing. But we did have a problem with one of the switching gears at the jail. We have two generators at the jail. A big generator that went along with the new jail, and a old generator from Dougie.
88.
Yeah, from 1988. And that there's an attachment to that when the power goes out, 30 seconds.
Yeah, within 30 seconds.
Within 30 seconds, it needs to switch to automatic, it needs to switch on. The switching gear didn't switch. So we were in a little bit of the dark for a little while until maintenance figured out, and then we shut the generator off. I couldn't understand why nobody just wanted to jump right onto that generator and pull that switch. But we manually shut the generator off and pulled the switch down to emergency, and we did it manually. So we'll have that fixed. And we test it every year. We test it every week, but we test it on a load every year. We actually bring a truck in and test it on a load, so that because we have to. It's a life safety code anyway.
Are there any residents with oxygen needs or such that you need to have the electricity?
A lot of them, a lot of our residents, but Riverside is pretty much 95% generated. And those generators work fine of all the places. The building that has really no generator is this building. The Justice Administration building has no generator. However, don't let it be said that we don't have a thought. And the governor's office made $303.5 million available for the 10 counties to enhance their emergency situations. And Tori's here actually, who's helping us put the grant together. So one of the things that we're looking at is perhaps putting a generator, moving one of the generators from the jail over here, putting a new one in at the jail. And that way, what I'm really afraid of is that we're gonna have 3 or 4 days without power and everything's gonna freeze. That's what scares me about this building. Not the first day or the second day, but if everybody remember the ice storm? We lost power for 4 days and I was sweating it out, that we were gonna have a freeze up in this building. So the other thing that happens is if we have a natural disaster of some kind, where the power is going to be out for weeks, like's occurred in other parts of the country, this building could be a good place of refuge. We put a lot of people in here, but we can't now because we can't keep them warm, because we have no generator. But if we can get the grant money from that, I know that a number of counties are not going to apply for that money. So if we can get it, then we have to come back to the delegation, ask permission, and then to accept the money and expend it. But that's a little bit down the road because the grant's not even due till the end of the month, end of February. But it's something we're thinking about.
Can you explain how you're accounting for the health insurance? I notice in most sections it's 0, because I assume it's all being paid in another one sum, but then
It's paid in one line item.
then you have like random amounts under health insurance.
If the random amounts are people that have chosen not to take our health insurance, and instead we pay them much less than what it would cost the county to provide them health insurance. But it's enough of an incentive for them not to take our health insurance, and pay their 20% share. If they can get health insurance through a spouse or their parents, because it's age 26, we want to encourage them to do that because it costs the county a lot less money. So we call it waiver money. And what that is you're waiving your health insurance for like $40 a week, as opposed to $8,000 or $9,000 that it would cost the county to do it. So it's in our best interest to for those people that have insurance coverage, it's in our best interest to buy them out, basically.
2,000 a year.
Yeah, as opposed to 8 or 9, what a single plan cost us.
And that's cheap. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we've done pretty well with our health insurance.
Yeah.
2 years prior to this, it's gone down. And this is the first year it's gone up in the last 3 years. And if you take the total of it, what it's gone down and what it's gone up, in 3 years, it's gone up a total of 4%.
Any further questions on this portion of the budget?
I don't have a question.
Thank you. Moving on then, we're now on the social behavior unit.
Okay, so, no, you're in nursing.
I'm sorry?
Nursing.
That's in department.
And that's,
Oh, I'm sorry.
that's the department that went down,
Sorry.
that $412,000. Remember, I promised you that it was gonna go down.
Yep, there it is.
What about hiring nursing staff and all? How are we doing?
Well, 2 things. I cut a deal with the state. I'm the only nursing home that did it. And I don't know why. The problem right now is the hospitals are loaded with people that need to go into nursing homes. Nursing homes can't take these people because they don't have the staff to care for them. So I got a $75,000 grant from the state, which I can renew and renew and renew and renew because they have $2.5 million and nobody took them up on it, to pay incentive money. In turn, over the last 2 weeks, I've taken 9 people out of the hospital. Well, actually, that's not totally true. I've taken 7 out of Wentworth Douglas, 1 out of Langdon Place, and 1 from the state hospital. to put on the behavior unit that for those again that went through the tour, I told you that, I was bringing another person onto the behavior unit. So, I have every sense that, that will, because we had a meeting actually with the deputy director of DHHS yesterday. And, she's the one that verified that nobody else took her up on it but us. And, simultaneous with that, she was very pleased with the fact that we've taken 9 people in that time period. Again, they wanna, because the hospitals are complaining to them that they're backed up. And part of the reason they're backed up is the number of people, shouldn't be there. Because they don't need hospital care, they need nursing home care. So by next week, I'll have cleared out Wentworth Douglas with those people. And there's 2 right now at Frisbee. I don't know if there's any more, but this was as of a couple of days ago, there was 2. So we will now then take from Frisbee to clear them out. And that way, it doesn't cost the county any money. Simultaneously, I'm picking up the reimbursement, that $211 a day that I wouldn't otherwise get. And the state's paying the tab. So I appreciate it. I appreciate that money being available to us. And I have no idea why no one else is doing it. I have no idea. I don't care because I'm not telling, because I don't want them to have an interest in doing it.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll take all the money. I'm all good with that.
I'm thankful that you found it. Keep it a secret. What was the total again though?
75,000 to start,
To start, but the total available.
2.5 million. So, that's 75,000. At first I said would be an incentive for 3 months. They said, no. Just spend it as quick as you get it. We'll renew it. We'll give you more.
So it's
Did you
not
get that
per
in
year,
writing?
it's per need.
It's per need. Yeah, and so I figure I got a hunk of money to, work off of. But again, we get the benefit of the, of the $211 a day. And they're paying for the extra staff. And my staff's getting an incentive, which is part of the reason why hopefully they continue to work there for $15.50 an hour, because they're primarily nurses' aides. We're in good shape with nurses, honestly, better than most places. And I will tell you that we pay our nurses well. Who we don't pay well is our aides. And that's part of what we're working on in this budget. And direction from the commissioners was, pay our lower paid people. We're paying housekeepers $14 an hour. And it's hard to attract that and maintain that staff. So that's been our focus in this year's budget.
And yet at the same time, you've gone onto a lot of people for a long time because you have staff recognition.
Oh, yeah, we have a lot of senior people. Yeah, our staff recognition is a shared expense. We do every week, we do a 50-50 raffle. So I actually won a couple of weeks ago, first time in all the years I've been here.
Your salary.
Yeah, sure. It was only $115 because it was a rollover. So you pay $1 and the other half of the money goes to contribute to what the county puts in. And we have, we buy like hams at Easter or turkey at Christmas or Thanksgiving, I'm sorry, for Thanksgiving. And we hand those out to the employees. Interestingly enough, a lot of it's their own money when they didn't win the 50-50, but they appreciate that type of contribution.
Right.
We have someone else.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm lost a little bit about the 75,000 and the 2.5 million.
Sure.
So can you so what is that being used for? You're saying you're not using it to pay the aides more, so.
Oh, no, we are. We've built an incentive program where if they work extra hours, we'll pay them beyond their time and a half. Like if you work 4 extra hours, we'll pay you $75.
And that's what you're doing with that 75,000?
That's correct.
And so the people that you're taking from these places are just in nursing home in a temporary sense, in a rehab
No.
sense?
No, they're long-term nursing home people.
Okay, but I thought.
The
you had-
rehab
I thought you
people,
had people on wait list, so how are you taking, I thought you guys were at full capacity.
No, we're not at full capacity because we can't staff the place.
Gotcha, okay,
If we could be full.
gotcha.
So right now, we're taking the emergencies in the community. And when there's no emergencies in the community, the next step is to take the hospitals. And the third step is to take the people from other nursing homes. So in fact, we have another one coming from Langdon Place next week. So we have 4 admissions this week and we're gonna have 3 or 4 next week that we've already had planned out. So we're doing the best we can based on the emergencies as we see them in the community.
Ray, given the fact we have an aging population, I'm surprised even that you're not bursting at the seams. So what are you running at?
We would be about 170 or of our 215. If you could give me the help, I could fill 250 beds. I can't pay.
How many
I'm
do you have?
I'm short 48,
Huh? No, what's your capacity?
215,
250?
not counting Hyder,
And you're now at one?
not counting the
Yeah,
hospice house.
Not counting it. And you're at 170 now approximately?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, you used to give us a rundown of what you're paying your health,
Sure.
and that would give me a better feel of.
I'm happy.
Maybe whether that has something to do with not being able to staff and all.
Well, I think that's a piece of it. The other piece of it is the workers just don't exist. You know, I think we need to face that every place you go, just drive down the Miracle Mile and see every single place is looking for help. You're about to see come this month, a report from regional planning is doing their population report. And what you're gonna find is within, this is astounding, because I'm there now. Within 15 years, half the population in New Hampshire is gonna be over 65.
Yeah.
Now, I'm already there, but, oh yeah, I'm there. I'm working for free. I got 50 years in the system. So, I have so half the population is gonna be over 65 in Stratford County. Within the next 15 years.
All right, give me a feel for your nursing staff, what you pay.
Sure.
And I know some are much more than others, administrative. ones.
Yep.
Give me a feel. It can be average. I don't like to hear.
No, I can give you the-
pay. I like to hear the kind of the average.
$37 an hour for RNs
Okay.
and
LPN.
about $28 for the LPNs.
Then under that would be the.
LNAs, which are like 50,
LNA.
yeah, licensed nursing assistant,
Okay.
which is around 1550.
They're the ones who do all the dirty work.
You're absolutely right, sir. You're absolutely right. They just don't hold, they can only do what the Board of Nursing allows them to do.
Uh-huh.
We also have one step in between, which is called an MNA. And that's a medication nursing assistant who can pass probably 95% of our meds. Can't do anything by injection, can't do certain medications, but can do the bulk of our medications. So we also have MNAs, which makes somewhere between the LNA and the LPN.
And David, you were in the House before.
You passed the
You
bill.
voted for that.
You voted for that. We lobbied you to vote to create an MNA.
Keep my memory going.
We lobbied the delegation, so that's been in effect since you were on the delegation before. And we lobbied you for that purpose.
And there
About
was a
halfway in
position
between
of
the,
person charged.
1550 and the LPN.
Gotcha.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so the recommendation on staff salaries, is that for the staff that you have today? Or does any of that include any open positions that you're hoping to fill?
Both.
The full amount or a certain amount
The
position?
Oh, not only up to the level at which, so for those of you that were on this committee last year, and I think I'm not sure it's much beyond Representative Wall. I budget for that 170 people. Okay, now if for some reason my census goes above that, I'll go back to the executive committee of the delegation and say, look I'm making more revenue than what you all approved in the budget. But in order to do that, I need to raise my expenses for staffing. And I'll make it equal because the executive committee doesn't have the authority to raise taxes. Only the full delegation has the authority to raise taxes. But if I make them an equal amount, that way I can overspend for staff because I have an offsetting revenue with my resident census. And honestly, we should all want that because that will make things better. And we will take more people from the outside and simultaneously we will recreate our workforce. And it doesn't cost the taxpayer a nickel. Because again, the executive committee doesn't have the authority to raise taxes.
So this budget proposal is based on your 170.
That's correct.
Oh,
That's correct. Yes, ma'am. That's exactly correct.
Yes, go ahead, Liz.
One more question. It's not because it's zero all the way through, but on dues and subscription, they take it that is for professional organization that nursing staff can be supported for membership, and if so.
I put it under staff education.
Yeah.
It's better reimbursed under staff education. So again, if I put it under nursing, we're not gonna get fully reimbursed. But if I put it under staff education, which falls under other, we're under reimbursed. So it's a financially better move for us to do that.
Okay.
So,
So they're still getting their.
yes, ma'am.
Other questions? Okay, moving on then. Now we're at the social behavior.
So this is the unit, we got a $400,000 increase in revenue and the cost went down 122,000. I changed around the way in which when our behavior therapist retired, I couldn't find a qualified behavior therapist. So I ended up contracting the service out last year. I have now found a qualified behavior therapist who actually used to work at the state hospital and worked at the Gerald Psych unit at the Elliott. So it's cheaper for us to bring her on board. And also she has the contacts. So as an example, the gentleman that I mentioned we're bringing in from the state hospital this week, she can call the state hospital and talk to Sally, who she used to work with. I'm just making that name up, and say, hey, give me the skinny on this guy. You know, what are we facing by admitting him? And so there's a lot of advantages to having her available for us. It's cheaper for one thing, and secondarily, it's better for the operation of the unit.
All set with that, David?
Oh, I wish I found her last year.
You've done well with that. I appreciate what you've done with that unit as well.
Yeah, so that's gone down $122,000.
Okay, moving on, it'll be page 30 in the yellow book, where at career program, LNA functions and goals.
I cut the program out. And I thank the legislature for that. You all in your last session agreed to fund the LNA programs. So now, when an LNA takes the program, they have to pay for it, or they work out a deal with the teaching agency. And then they can get fully reimbursed. I just have to sign off on it that they're employed as an LNA. So there's no reason for us to run the school any longer, so I cut it out. The second thing is that there's a renewed interest, or we now again are allowing Dover High School to train their LNAs at Riverside. So there's multiple advantages to that. One is it gives the staff more help. And they train on 3 to 11, which is great because that's the shift we need to help on. But the other thing is a number of these young ladies and gentlemen who want to go into nursing school will work with us during summers. At the time when our staff needs to go on vacation, they want the extra money. And they will, so instead of coming home on school break and scooping ice cream or doing something, they'll come and work with us, gain experience, and simultaneous with that, we'll gain help. And it's, don't misunderstand this word. It's cheap help because we don't have to pay any benefits. You know, so it's we're paying them the salary that we're paying other LNAs, but you know, they're getting their health benefits from some other source. Because when they're home for the summer, they're not working for us long enough to even qualify for benefits anyway. And the hope is, honestly speaking, that they'll like us. And when they graduate from nursing school, although I'll tell you, most want the high-tech stuff in the ERs and some will come back, particularly well, I'm looking at Brianna because Brianna a number of our nurses have gone all the way through. From LNAs to LPNs, you were never an LPN. No, from LNAs to RNs and stayed with us. So we offer an education incentive program for that purpose. You have to work for us for 4 years, but we contribute towards your education if you're interested. That's way back to Ann Tor created that program. Yeah. I thought you might remember. Yeah. Actually created that program. She's a member of the delegation. Sir.
Is there any plan to expand to other high schools or even UNH?
Well, UNH, we do in-services with UNH primarily at the hospice house, because they have to do their clinical in a hospital. But we do, and we have picked up a couple of nurses from UNH who want, you know, the death and dying piece of nursing. A lot of times it comes from stories about their grandmother and their grandfather who could have benefited from a hospice house, but didn't have that available to them. So we do pick up, I'll be honest with you, we don't really pick up the nurses from UNH at Riverside, but we pick it up at the hospice house. Which, you know, it's just what a beautiful place.
That's wonderful.
Aesthetically, it's gorgeous.
How old is that? How old is that?
Let's see, about 15 years. 06. So 16 years.
This century.
Yes, well, it wasn't us.
I
We
know.
donated the land.
Yeah.
And then it went through 3 separate owners. And we took it over because nobody else would run it. Yeah, I wrote 32 letters to every licensed hospice agency in New Hampshire, offering to give them the hospice house for $1 a year. And nobody even called me back. Nobody even called me back.
So it was built privately to begin with, and it was available.
Yeah, boy, I'll tell you, Citizens Bank lost their shirt.
Yeah, how was it, Ray, just briefly, what was the process you had to go through to connect it with the nursing home, with HHS? Just briefly.
Briefly, I reached, we had a gentleman on a delegation by the name of Roby Parsons. I don't know if you remember Roby Parsons. He lived in Milton. And he was somebody who really cared about the hospice house. He had personal reasons for caring about that. He helped me reach out to state licensure and we met with the head of licensure and the head of certification and survey, which is the place that comes down and inspects nursing homes. He hooked me up with them. And we had a meeting and through kind of a wink and a nod, they allowed us to attach it to Riverside. And this is at a time now, remember, where you can't add nursing home beds, right? There's a moratorium. There's been a moratorium for 15 years. So, you can't add nursing home beds, so there was some question about whether we would be able to add the hospice house on. But kind of, we have to go in front of what existed at the time called the Certificate of Need Board. And George McGlarus and I went up in front of the Certificate of Need Board, and I gotta tell you, it was fixed. Just kidding. We went up, the poor gentleman that was up there before me wanted to add like a surgical robot somewhere, and that board just grilled again. And then George and I went up there, and it was like playing in a softball tournament. Cause I think everybody wanted to keep Hyder House open because it was the only hospice house in the Seacoast. There's another one in around Concord, and there's another one in Dartmouth.
Yeah, so I'm very familiar with the one in Concord, and it's wonderful. I lived in Concord for like 8 years, so it's just surprising to me that, and it's a wonderful operation, and how the nurses come in, and I had a very good friend of mine that died there from cancer, so.
Yeah, why?
Go ahead, Bree.
I can help with some of that understanding of why none of the hospice agencies would. What ends up happening is when you operate a hospice house like that, an inpatient and a lot of federal inpatient there, the cost to operate it, well, becomes kind of a problem for a lot of those agencies, but you also have to maintain a certain percentage that you're caring for in the community. So when you don't have the staff to be able to staff a hospice house and staff the community, you start to change your shape the percentage of individuals, and then you start to end up paying more or not being able to operate such.
So in other words, in order to run that as purely as a hospice house, and there is regulations about a hospice house operation, you have to have an outside number of beds of people you're servicing on regular hospice at home, which is the vast majority of hospice. Remember, the ladies and gentlemen that we take at Hyder are either two categories. One is respite, because the family needs, some respite period of time. You can have up to 5 days of respite, and then we have this entity called Friends of Hyder, who raise money separately and will pay for additional time if families are in need and can't afford it. It's very difficult to care for a dying person. Mom, dad, brother, sister, we've had infants. And it's hard, it's a tough situation. So Friends of Hyder are there to help and support us, so we don't have uncompensated days. And that's what was happening with some of the other hospices. The other thing is, we allow every hospice to admit to Hyder, which is different if you're, and the other hospice houses, the other two that I know of in New Hampshire, you have to join up with that hospice who runs the hospice house in order to be admitted. Well, honestly speaking, say I'm on Cornerstone Hospice, but the hospice house is run by a medicine. Well, Cornerstone doesn't want to give up their resident that they might have cared for the last 3 or 4 months. With us, everybody's welcome to admit, and they pay us, and we leave them a percentage. We give them 10 to 15%. But remember, the reimbursements is pretty heavy. I mean, it's $1,300 a day. Accepting that when it's that much, we have to pay for the meds. And we can't buy fentanyl as cheap as you can buy it on the street. We actually have real, hospital grade or pharmacy grade fentanyl, which is one of our largest pain relievers, frankly. It's not, we try and use others, but a lot of times it ends up being fentanyl and Dilaudid. Yeah. And the problem with morphine is that if you lose kidney function and stuff, then the morphine's not effective because it's got to be processed through. So we try morphine because you can buy that by the gallon. I mean, it's so inexpensive.
It's true.
I'm just, I'm speaking frankly,
Okay, we're only on Zoom.
I don't, what I'm saying is it's really cheap. So we try morphine if it's usable, but if there's an internal organ failure, then we'd have to move to fentanyl or Dilaudid.
So can any hospice nurses that are Can any nurses outside come in?
Yeah, anytime.
Okay, so yeah, it does work like that in Concord too, so I was just seeing if that process.
Yeah, and in fact,
Okay,
in order for us to give them a portion of the reimbursement, they have to come in.
correct.
Yeah, they have to come in. But our doctors manage.
Yes.
We don't let out, well, that's not true. No outside doctors are welcome to come in, but no one does.
Yeah.
They leave our board certified palliative care doctors to manage,
To manage that.
to manage that. So that's a kind of a 7-day-a-week operation for doctors, because those conditions, well, they can change so quickly.
Wasn't the reimbursement half of that back when we took it over?
Yeah, it was. It's gone through the roof. And you know what else has gone through the
Remember
roof?
at the time you said that would be enough to.
The respite's gone through the roof too. We used to get like a couple $100 a day. Now the respite's up to $500 a day.
What is that?
That's if you are on hospice, but you're primarily at home. But the family needs a break,
Yeah.
so they can come to us for 5 days, or we can find a way to extend that. Medicare pays for 5 days, but again, the Friends of Hospice might fill in the blank for a few more days.
We could talk all night about hospitals. They are fabulous over there. Personal experience with them. You think this. Any further questions on that portion of the budget?
Well, that was a zero, so that one's an easy one.
Resident services, we are page 31 in your yellow book if you're using it.
Yeah. So resident services actually is what Brianna used to do, and still supervises that department. But is the nurses that manage all of the federal paperwork. They do all of the care planning for the residents. And they sit through every care planning meeting, which is every 90 days. And more often, if there's a significant change in condition of the resident. The other thing that we do that I don't think anybody else does, at least as far as I know, is we do what's called end-of-life care planning. So it's the elephant in the room. It's the mom or dad comes into the nursing home and no one's really, I mean, the doctors, met with them and perhaps, hasn't shared everything. So our staff our doctors, our nurse practitioner will look at the resident, assess, read all their medical records, do their own checking, usually been with us for a month or two. So we get to know the families, and then we'll invite the families in to meet with our doctor or nurse practitioner and go over what is expected to happen with the illness that they have. And inquire from the family, if something happens, do you want to send them to the hospital? Do you want to start antibiotics? Do you want to have a tube feeding, have a tube inserted for feeding? And when the families, we have this really great book called Hard Choices for Loving People that we give the families to look at, that explains what happens on the hospital end of all these choices. I mean, the natural tendency, I remember when my mother was there 25 years ago. I mean, when you get a call in the middle of the night, the first thing you say is, yes, send them to the hospital, but now we work towards educating the families about, is that really the best choice for the resident? Is that what the resident wants? Because by the time it leads to the point of making choices, are they really, they're not alert enough to make that decision. So we have discussions about that before.
That is a very sensitive and meaningful process that you go through in that booklet, very easy to understand.
Well, yeah, we like it. Yeah, we use
It is
it.
helpful for families.
A number of years ago, we used it back to the simple days when people were just deciding about resuscitate, do not resuscitate. The conversation now has gone way beyond that, to hospitalizations, to tube feedings, to use of antibiotics, to, all of those types of things. And most families just want their loved one to be comfortable. They want comfort care.
Any other questions? Okay, moving on from that, but grateful to hear all that, Greg. I think if I'm correct, we're now on page 32 of the yellow book, which is the maintenance department, and I'm sure maintenance will be happy to clue us in on anything that's necessary.
Well,
Because it's been a long night for you, a long day.
Dougie's been, our new maintenance director. Jim Gagne, who has been here for, almost 30 years, has retired. In fact, I had 3 department heads retire, well, this year, all of which were 25, 30-year employees. So, Dougie's taken over maintenance. We hired from within. We had a competitive situation. And, so that's why you see a reduction, in costs. We're obviously, no offense to Dougie, but we're not paying him what a 30-year employee would have been making.
The secret's out.
Well, he knows it.
I think it's interesting that the cost of oil, gas, and grease, has only gone up a little bit.
Well, it's actually gone down 55,000.
Looking to, 0.272.
Oh,
And now you're allowing.
Yeah.
15,541.
yeah, and the reason that the electricity hasn't gone up and gas hasn't gone up is we're on a bid. We did a 3-year bid, so our prices are locked in.
That's nice. That is a good idea.
So we're only, I mean, for those of you that have public service, you're paying somewhere around 20 cents a kilowatt. We're paying 7. Yeah, we're paying 7. No, we go out to public bid. I can't remember. Nextera is the name of the company we buy our electricity. So we pay public service for the poles and the lines.
Yeah.
But for the actual energy itself, we pay Nextera at 7 cents a kilowatt.
How long is that?
Well, we got the rest of this year and our gas is 2 years. And we, who's that, Doug?
Unitil.
Unitil is they were the most successful bidder, was actually Unitil, which is a little unusual because they don't like to sell gas.
That's natural gas.
That's natural gas. The whole complex works off natural gas. Therm, I don't know. I have to get back to you on the therm. I'm sorry. I honestly, I think I actually probably have that in the backup.
Is there anything particular we need to know also, for being here today tonight?
Uh,
What you'd like to offer?
there's a lot to maintain in that building. 2 50-year-old buildings and then a 100-year-old building. As well as the jail and this location in Hyder. Even the newest building requires just as much maintenance as the oldest building.
But this report that we have was just the resting room, right?
Yes, there's a separate
Personnel all
maintenance.
get out of there.
Yeah, there's a maintenance person and a half that maintains this building.
Yeah, but we're looking at.
You're looking at the nursing home. That's correct. Yes,
That's
ma'am.
all we're focusing on. Okay, are there?
Wait, I'm sorry, you had a
I'm
question.
sorry, go ahead.
So under boiler maintenance, so you got $3,200 and then the expenditures was 34,000. And you're going back to 3,200. So what happened?
I believe that's a typographical.
That's a typo, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I think what you'd find is we added an extra number.
That particular.
It's actually 3,400, not 34,000.
That particular line item pays for a company by state law to come and certify the boilers to check them out every year.
Okay.
We have to have them licensed. I'm sorry, I regret the typo.
Oh, no, it's fine. I just.
No, it's 3,400.
No one was as surprised as I was doing my first budget when I saw that typo.
It's probably an extra 6 on there.
Yeah, but we have to, again, that's state law that we have to have them come in and certify the boilers. And they issue us the license.
So with regard to that typo, that probably carries all the way down to the total.
That carries down to the total of the
That column.
second column, yes,
Okay.
yes,
So
is the answer. Second and the third column. I'll send you a corrected sheet, just so you'll have it.
Okay, but they're still planning on,
We'll take your word for it.
still recommending what we see on the.
Yeah, that's all we have to pay the vendor, so that's all, and we can't do that ourselves, obviously. They want an independent vendor to do it.
So, the director's salary, is this the director of maintenance just for the rest home?
No.
For all?
for the whole complex.
Okay.
Yeah, Dougie's are,
Only appears in this budget.
that's correct. So when we file our cost report, we'll have to make a deduction. But that's, again, under the concept of, we don't want one person's salary to be in a bunch of different places.
So that's my same question. So same thing with the foreman and the maintenance crew, that's everything?
No, we have the foreman, we only have one foreman. And the maintenance, we have a person and a half over here for maintenance. So when the subcommittee that looks at general government will reviews that part.
Okay. And the maintenance crew though, that's for more than just the nursing home, right?
Yes, easily we float. I think we have 4 people working over here now. Because Dougie says you need to go to the, you need to go to the nursing home. So the nice part is, in the old days, the union used to give us a hard time about moving people, but they don't do it anymore. So if we need 4 people over here, we'll take 2 from Riverside and move them over here. If we have a person, a couple of people at the jail, if we need to move, like we only have 1 electrician as an example. So if that electrician might have to go to every place we have here. In fact, we just had the electrician over here working on the radio system at the sheriff's department. Just last weekend.
As well as 3 other projects.
So we with 1 electrician, we pay him out of the nursing home, but we move him everywhere we need him.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so for the electricity and gas, I know you said that there was under contract, right?
Correct.
So how does it go down so is it just going down for this year? When did that contract begin?
Actually, this is the third year of the contract. So if it's gone down, it's because of usage. What we'll do is just, it's hard to guess what the weather's gonna be like. And a lot of our electricity and natural gas is based on usage. So we just take last year's number and hope that, we come out the same. If we get a real cold snap, or if we get a lot of snow, we'll need more overtime because we have to plow more. It's just kind of the luck of the draw.
Further questions under maintenance? Let's move on to laundry and sewing. Page 33 of your booklet that we're using. It's a jail.
So that $146,000,
Yeah,
we theoretically pay the jail, which we really don't, but I can then charge it to other on our cost report. So you'll see an offsetting revenue of $146,000 on the revenue page. So that's the second item that's in that situation.
we used to send the laundry out to a laundry service, didn't we?
Yeah, well, it's a lot cheaper to have the inmates do it.
So that's the outside services you're talking about?
Yeah, it's actually the jail.
Okay.
And it's cheaper. I mean, we pay the inmates, don't get me wrong. To fold linen, it's $2 an hour. And to do the washing, it's $5 an hour.
What does that go in like?
It goes into their account. And they can either purchase commissary items from that account, make phone calls for that account. They can pay fines from that account. They can pay child support from that account, any of the above. What happens sometimes with inmates at the jail that we like to avoid happening is they get released for the charges that they're in on. And then there's a warrant hanging out there for them because they didn't pay a traffic ticket. So they end up back in jail. So rather than doing that before they're released, we run an NCIC check on them. If there's an outstanding fine of some kind, we'll reach out to the court, send them a check, and the court vacates the warrant. And that way the inmate doesn't end up going back in jail and wasting jail space. Because that's really kind of foolish. And every inmate has an opportunity to work.
because they can work in the kitchen, because we only hire cooks. Inmates serve and dishwash and everything else, and they make $2 an hour for that. So we only, our only employee are the jail cooks. We don't employ anyone else to serve the food. I'm sorry?
It helps with the attitudes of the inmates too. if they-
Well, and if they show some ambition, it is a piece of how the superintendent can release them prior to the serving of their full sentence. Yes, ma'am.
Just a question about how
Sure.
many staff are in that laundry and sewing staff? What is that?
I can tell you right now.
We also found,
7.8.
I also found the current gas price per therm is 0.6079.
Okay. Did you hear that, Representative Bigford?
6079.
Yeah,
607.
7.8.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions on laundry and sewing?
I'm just curious, who are, for the inmates to do the laundry and sewing?
No sewing, but laundry.
So this is just for the nursing home.
We do the residents' personal clothing. Okay, we wash and deliver their personal clothing. Because the temperatures, as you might imagine, are significantly different. And if you try and wash the residents' personal clothes in the temperatures that you do linen in, they fit dolls when they come out. They're all shrunk, so we don't, so the jail does linen, the nursing home does personal clothes. Sometimes the family likes to do the personal clothes themselves, so we let them take those clothes, but 90% of the time we do the personal clothing of the residents too.
Okay.
And we sew them if they need to be, if they're ripped. We also sew name tags in them so that when we do them, we know who they belong to when they're come out of the laundry. So everything that comes in at particularly at Christmas time or anything, the seamstress is just maxed out because she's sewing labels into all the clothing.
Wow.
Pretty
They like to
impressive.
learn.
Yeah, I need her.
Yeah.
I think I might. Does she do outside work?
Yeah.
I need ironing, yeah. Okay, are there other questions on laundry and sewing?
And just to give you an idea,
Okay.
because this is,
Housekeeping.
just one second, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry,
She makes $16.21 an hour.
Who else?
Our seamstress makes $16.21 an hour. So I don't think we, well, I'm sorry, I just thought I'd give you an example.
Page 34 of your booklet is now housekeeping department.
My director of housekeeping and laundry retired, Rob Forcier, who was there for almost 30 years. And he retired January 1st, so that's part of the reason why you see a substantial decrease in salary in that, because our new director of housekeeping and laundry obviously isn't going to get paid the same as somebody who's worked there with 25 years experience.
So that's why that whole budget is down slightly.
Correct. Bless you.
Thank you. Any questions? None. Page 35. Would be the infection protection.
No, I think physician in pharmacy.
Clinical recruitment and development, employment.
No, I think we missed physician. Did we miss physician in pharmacy? Because I want to talk about that.
I missed one, I'm sorry.
Oh, down at the bottom.
I missed one.
Don't give them half, okay.
It's reopening.
Sorry, physician.
It's really the retooling of, that's what the budget used to be. And then I cut it back last year because we were using Hyder House primarily as a quarantine facility for COVID. So now Hyder is back in full operation, with as full as we are, which is half the building. But we're running, I don't know, today we have 4. I was over there this afternoon before I came over here. And we had 6 most of last week, and 7's our capacity. So we're running, I budget for 5. So when we're at 6, I'm happy. When we're at 4, I'm hoping that we go back up to 6, but not at anybody's peril.
Okay.
And we actually make, interestingly enough, we make more money. We actually make more net money on respite than we do on general inpatient. Because on respite, we don't have to pay for the medication. Which is only reimburses us around $520 a day. And we make $1,300 a day, but we have to pay for those, meds. And fentanyl and Dilaudid are really expensive. Even though we go out to bid to get the best deal we can.
Right downtown Dover.
We're not interested in the mix.
Oh,
So you have a consultant pharmacist,
We have to by law,
okay,
by CMS regulation, we have a consultant pharmacist
okay,
who, what, in this case, it's a she, what she does is, goes around the entire facility and looks at the medication distribution and tells us when we need to relook at the medications and if we are following the federal law. We have no choice. We have to have one. CMS, Center for Medicare and Medicaid requires it.
can you tell us briefly about the position as well as dental health, how's that working?
Good, we've had the, no increase, Dr. Kana is our dentist, has been our dentist for a long time. The money that Medicaid pays us for dentistry, we just turn around and pay him that amount of money. So he has to see every resident, and does, pretty much, he won't do like a full mouth extraction, but he will do regular extractions, and provides all the dentures and things for free.
Does he do fillings or anything like that?
No, most of the time, by the time you're my age or some of our residents are quite a bit older, we're dealing more here with the possible extractions or replacement. Very few of our residents come to us with a full set of teeth. I mean, it's just not the case. Except a couple of our we do have some young residents.
Thank you for sharing that.
I'm not sure that's something I really wanted to share.
And now we will move to the infections, prevention of those medical, clinical recruitment.
So-
Development, employee.
So every nursing home has to have a certified infection control person. They have to be certified. And he, in this case, it's a he, works with Brianna as an example on COVID, as well as all our other, everything from flu vaccines to pneumonia vaccines to, and the biggest thing is lately, and the state's been passing out deficiencies for it, kind of like candy, is antibiotic stewardship. So that is not the overuse of antibiotics. So as an example, we don't treat every urinary tract infection that our residents have. We treat urinary tract infections if they're symptomatic. But a lot of what the feds are saying is, if you treat everyone, you're creating superbugs that they're running out of antibiotics to treat. So they only want to treat those things. And in fact, if you inappropriately treat somebody, they actually issue you a deficiency, which I'm happy to brag a little bit about. We just had our annual survey 6 weeks ago. We had one deficiency. The average in the state of New Hampshire is 5.8. The average federal is 8.7. So the fact that we had one, I couldn't be happier. And poor Dougie got one for door closers. One of our door closers didn't work in the case of a fire alarm. So that's an automatic deficiency, but six, not all nurses, a variety of healthcare professionals, licensed healthcare professionals come in and look at every single thing that you do for 4 days. And they look back at everything imaginable. The regulations are 1,000 pages. in length. And everybody has an annual survey that's done 9 to 15 months from the past survey. So I'm happy that we're way under the
New Hampshire and national average.
I'm a little concerned about these urinary tract infections that aren't being treated.
Yeah.
Tell me. That can be very.
Go ahead, Brianna.
So there's certain criteria to truly identify a urinary tract infection. It's gonna be the microorganism that's there, whether they're symptomatic. And there's another one, and this is why there's an infection.
Wait a minute. Symptomatic in this case means what?
So if there's painful urination
Yeah.
or if there's a fever associated, those are the ones we're really targeting to make sure they're treated. They're more often than not, anytime any one of our residents ends up at the hospital, they come back to us with a diagnosis of a urinary tract infection on antibiotic. Even though there's no symptoms associated with it, but they were able to find bacteria in the urine, or the nitrates were elevated, but there wasn't the bacteria that was actually producing growth. So it could be someone who's had chronic urinary tract infections over the years, but because of their lab showing that there's a little bit of bacteria in there, they're slapping them on an antibiotic. Well, what that ends up doing over time, if there's no symptoms, and this is their chronic baseline, is that overuse of antibiotics, now you're talking about the super bugs like the VRE or the CRE that are now all resistant to those antibiotics.
And those are
Big push.
impossible to treat because they haven't created an antibiotic yet that can manage that. So what we try and do as best we can is keep it isolated, and contained. But we can't cure it. We have a couple of residents with VRE. And so we just keep it contained. And sometimes that means that also on occasion, it dictates who your roommate is too. Because you want somebody with the same situation, so they can't spread it to each other.
And the other aspect of that though too, is that there are situations where our providers are all for comfort. So if the person is having those symptoms, they might not meet those extra 2 criteria. They will prescribe something to ensure that they're comfortable and that that's cleared up. So although there's a giant push to try and reduce it, there's also a comfort that is taken into account by our
But
providers.
as a clear example, Carroll County, they actually last year tried to give us a deficiency for the use of antibiotics on somebody who was dying at the hospice house. And we fought that and won. They said, no, you know, this was a comfort situation, but they wanted to give us a deficiency for it. Carroll County got a deficiency for overuse of antibiotics. So they're it is something they look at as one of the big criterias.
I just wanted to make a
Bless you.
comment about that inspection. The inspections are unannounced each year.
Unannounced, yeah, we never know when they're coming.
And
Anywhere 9 to 15 months from the last one.
the thing is that what we saw that for tonight is remarkable that our deficiencies are so limited.
Well,
The place is old. And I
You know.
won't go on about why I feel we need a new home, but
well,
anyway.
I gotta be honest with you, a lot of that is Brianna. I mean, you know, because COVID they have one person that just does nothing but COVID.
Yeah.
You know, that's all they do, and Brianna hands them 1,000 pages of
I
documentation.
provided her a principle of what they could.
And fortunately, we had no deficiencies for COVID, because that's obviously the thing. We also had a couple of random inspections for COVID, that were infection control inspections, where the feds actually showed up, not the state. The feds showed up once and the state showed up once during COVID. So they can come anytime they want. All totally unknown, they just walk in the door. And they can show up anytime, day or night or on the weekends. I've had weekend surveys too, in my 35 surveys.
I think it too is the security.
No, our doors are open. We do lock our doors, but there's a phone number that you can call and the supervisor will let you in, because there's no visiting hours. We have suggested visiting hours, you know, from like 11 to 8. However, honestly, we don't ask anyone to leave. And they can, if they want to come in the middle of the night, particularly if somebody's ill, all you have to do is call the supervisor and they'll let you in. And at Hyder, it's the same thing. The only thing that's a little bit different at Hyder is you need to push the doorbell to get in, because the medication we have in there is a jackpot, you know, for somebody to steal. you know, the Dilaudid, fentanyl, it's a jackpot. So you have to push the door and say who you are and who you're there to see.
Thank you. We're coming into the home stretch, so I saw somebody yawning.
Can I ask one question real quick?
Please.
Yeah, sure,
I think one for you, but in any case, so are you guys doing any, in regards with the whole antibiotic piece, really supplement based where you're, you know, using, there's so many proven supplements that are helping these patients and, in regards with urinary tract infections, I'm kind of an expert on it, so my nana used to have that and 90% of elderly patients, they're not going to tell you about any of that stuff with pain. And that's what causes dementia. When you have a urinary tract infection that's not treated, it causes onset early dementia. So I'm very, very familiar with that. And so I don't care about demerits if somebody needs an antibiotic, but you have to kind of, you know, an antibiotic's just, it's going to come back again. So you have to really have the root problem. And it's everything from diet to supplements and all of that.
So the answer is yes, and I can't remember the name of the product.
UTI staff, a lot of individuals.
That's what's called UTI stat. I just couldn't remember the
I
name.
think the cranberry pills as well. We really try to push hydration, but as people get
Water.
more confused, the less they want.
Yeah, they don't want to drink.
So that's where the UTI stat will come into play. So we do use it.
Yeah, the UTI stat is actually a, and I'll see it, because they'll show up on report, you know, as having. So when somebody shows any symptoms at all, we put them on a tracking sheet. And then we follow that but we use the UTI stat. That's just the name of the product.
The doctor can't recommend that, can he?
Oh, yeah, sure. But do we need a doctor's order for? Yeah, okay, we need a doctor's order for UTI stat.
We need a doctor's order for vitamins, and
That's ridiculous.
Don't get me wrong.
All right, don't get me started. Let's
I'm sorry, let's move on to something else.
Let's flip. No, I'm just
I
kidding.
feel the same way.
if you have any pull with CMS,
Oh,
Okay, rehabilitative services, what are we on, page 36 of the yellow book? Go ahead.
So you can see we moved some staff around. One line item went up 52 and the other one went down 80. All in all, it's a savings of 35,000. So we have a physical therapist, we have 2 occupational therapists, and we have 2 physical therapy assistants. Those are licensed people that can work under the supervision of the physical therapists. And right now, our physical therapist runs our rehab department.
And there's an individualized program for each.
For every resident that, you know, I wish more of our residents would take advantage of it. But we also can bill for some of those services. You'll notice on the revenue page, it's called Medicare B, Part B. So we bill for some of those services on we listed on the revenue page. And we bill $275,000 a year based on the work that these people do.
How many physical therapy aides are there?
There is,
But you said 2.
I have to look,
I
I'm
thought
sorry.
that was the assistant physical therapist. That was good. Am I wrong?
No, the physical therapy is good too.
Okay.
So there's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
How many aides notices?
Aides. Okay.
Yep.
5 aides?
Yeah, they make $18.79 an hour. One of them makes $21.09. Cause she's been there for. Forever.
As you probably noticed on every page, the budget stayed pretty flat, and they go down a little tiny bit, and they go up just a little bit, but overall, it's rather flat. Activities department,
I cut activities back last year. I cut them back to vacant positions. My reason is that we only had 170 residents and not 215. So I actually gave them back a part-time person, mostly for the holidays. You know, we try and do a lot of stuff around every holiday. You know, right, it could be, well, it's a big deal. Residents' birthday is a big deal. If you have a spouse, we cook a special meal for the husband and wife for an anniversary meal. and their activities is involved in this. And we do, we used to do a lot more group activities, but hopefully we're about to start that again. And that's a COVID related issue. But if we don't, that means we have to do individual activities on all the units. In fact, those of you that went on the tour, you actually saw 2 activities, people working with various residents when you were walking through. In fact, you saw an activities person in the, one activities person in the lobby too.
I have a question about the
Sure.
director. Is that June still?
No, she retired.
She did.
She retired a couple of years ago though.
So just a comment, because for 8 years, we had the homeschool talent show come twice a year.
Yep.
She was just always delighted to work with. It was a great opportunity.
Yeah, one of her offspring became ill, and I think she was close to 80. And
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
she's pretty spry, for her age, but one of her daughters became quite ill, and she just decided, her husband passed away, and she just decided that she was gonna dedicate the rest of her life to helping her daughter and their kids. So she left a couple of years ago.
Sorry to take up the time.
But no, bro.
We had quite a commitment here, so I really enjoyed working with her and the staff that were here.
It's really wonderful to drop in occasionally and see when they are able to have the group activities.
So everybody's always welcome.
They really enjoyed it. I
They
think
do.
sometimes we had over 2-hour show, probably overstayed our welcome, but we would have bring about 30+ kids.
It was great. I mean, to see the generational impact. This year, little brag, we won the first place in the Dover Parade float. My granddaughter is part of a dance school. She's 10 now. So I contributed $500 to that dance school because they're dancing at Disney this year. And some of the families can't afford to send the kids. So I donated $500, and if they would dance behind our float. And I have to think that that's a piece of how we won, because it was really cool. And I got to see my granddaughter and we won first place in the Dover Christmas parade. So
Of course.
that makes me happy.
That's wonderful.
And our staff and the residents put the floats together,
Nice.
and I pulled it with my truck. And we have a large trailer here at the county, and we decorated it all. It was really pretty cool.
So
It
that's
was
a
fun.
fun part of the nursing
Oh,
home, and it
yeah.
really is wonderful.
Well, it's provides, whenever I feel overwhelmed, because I'm the only one that does the whole county, I just walk around and look at my residents. And it reminds me of why I'm there.
Oh, right. Going on to occupational therapy, that's another department that's very wonderful.
So, last year you guys approved, actually it was the year before last, we have 2 occupational therapists. Big deal for us, helps people stay independent with eating, and they also do swallowing evaluations. In other words, we've sent our occupational therapists to school to be certified in doing swallowing evaluations, so we don't have to send the residents to the hospital. I'm not sure I can't remember exactly everything that she included, but yes, I can see it.
Is that something new?
No, it's been a couple of years. We used to send our residents out to the hospital for what's called video fluoroscopies,
Yeah.
which checks your swallowing. And the problem is with our confused residents, they get scared, because they're not used to, going out for these kinds of things. So if we can, whatever we can do internally, plus we can bill for that, we might as well, get the revenue for it. So one of our occupational therapists is certified in and can do the swallowing evaluations, which also tells us what texture their meal can be. From regular to chopped to pureed to, depending on what they can swallow, and she can do that assessment.
Which is something that really affects an awful lot of older people.
Yeah, when I go in the feed, I went through the class, so I'm a certified feeder, for lack of a better way to put it. So during the holidays, my kids used to be aides in another lifetime. So they're both certified feeders. So our family tradition is we go in every Christmas and feed Christmas night meal. So the staff's always nice about giving me someone who will eat all their food. And it's really nice to deal with. So they stick my kids with more challenging people, because interestingly enough, both of my kids worked on that dementia unit. So they're used to it. They help me with they let me handle the easy resident. Like they feel bad for me.
Okay. We're almost there, folks. Social services.
Really changed a little bit. When I brought the social worker behavior therapist on, I needed to the behavior unit. This young lady works for social service. So she ended up making more money than my social service people. So I had to make some adjustments, and that's where you see the adjustments that are made. Although honestly speaking, the social workers, I think you'd be surprised that the head, the senior social worker makes $33 an hour. And they have to be licensed social workers. You know, they have to, it can't be just someone, they have to finish their 4-year degree and it's part of the requirements.
Any questions on social services? I think David's wearing down. That part of the budget up.
Right in the middle.
It's on
Oh,
the
that's
back
it.
of that.
Sorry.
Yeah, the owl.
So, what we would do now is, tell me if I'm correct.
You would look for anybody that might make a motion for any changes or to approve.
Entertain a motion to accept the commissioner's recommendation for the Riverside Rest Home budget.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I'm looking for the total, way down the bottom here.
All those in
Well, the
favor?
total that you see, Representative Bickford, isn't the real total, because you don't review insurances. It's done by a different subcommittee.
Well, what's the number I'm approving? Just
The
know that.
number is on
Shouldn't that be in
page
the motion?
40 of your yellow book, or if
I
you're
want page
looking at
40,
the handout, it's the last page. And it's under total expenditures, Riverside Rest Home, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines from the bottom. Okay, right,
29 million,
$878,386.
okay, that should be part of the motion. That should be part of our
Where is
motion,
it?
right?
Should be.
Well, I did the general thing of accept the commissioner's recommendation, which is $29,870,386.
And you are correct about how much it went up, but the revenue for Riverside Rest Home went up $1.8 million.
Wow.
Where do I see that?
Page 41. You have to use the yellow book, I'm sorry.
I have to look, I don't have the yellow book, I said, I apologize. Okay,
So are you saying that we're trying to approve this right now?
You don't have to, it's up to you. You can vote no, you can abstain, it's your total call. You know,
We have a
there's,
motion already.
we have the motion on the floor, it's been made, it's been seconded. Is there further discussion?
You want, yeah, further discussion?
I don't know. So this is basically saying, if I say yay, that this is a done deal?
no, it goes to the executive committee. And then the executive committee reviews it,
Okay.
and then it goes to the full delegation.
All we're doing is making a recommendation to the executive committee, that's all we're doing.
It carries a long way.
But I do have another question. but I
Yes, ma'am.
guess- Sorry.
That's okay.
Kind of warming up at the beginning. I know, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Page 23, the administration director position.
That's Brianna.
Okay, that's you. Okay, good. And then, there was one more.
And I think it's the worst kept secret that, you know, I'm 68 years old, so I'm 68 years old, so I'm probably not long for, I'll be here for some period of time, but it's probably the worst kept secret that the logical replacement for me is Brianna, who's about to be licensed, and then she'll sit and patiently wait until my wife says no more, and then, I'm sorry, sir? No, I don't know if she'll do that.
Have you done your end of life stuff yet?
Yeah, believe it or not, I have, my daughter's my durable power of attorney.
Okay.
My wife's first and she's second.
You're always on top of your administrative work.
Discussion. And I must say, paid attention to the bottom line, of every page we looked at, there's 20 some odd pages tonight, that, it's very impressive that the nursing home is able to pretty much level fund things.
Well, it's level funded when you offset it with the revenue, you know, and so. Again, the biggest focus of the increase in the nursing home is to pay the nurses' aides McDonald's wages. Or a little bit more.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed.
We want to vote, you were.
We were trying to find the revenue number that he had mentioned.
Oh, I'll show you the page.
We have the page, we're just trying to find.
Right.
Was it the 39? Or is it?
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Way at the bottom.
way at the bottom.
Yeah, way at the bottom.
Sorry, we're new to this, so.
Please.
At least I am. I don't know. what-
Yeah, so it's the difference between this number and this number.
Okay,
I've been asking for.
So one offsets the other.
Did we get the vote?
well, we kind of missed it. We were looking at
We're
this.
waiting for your vote.
Oh, you are, good. Okay, I'm a yay.
Yeah,
Okay, that's unanimous, I believe. I've got to say, it's been a long 2 hours and 20 minutes, but you've paid attention well and you've asked good questions, and it's not easy, but I find this the most wonderful part of the budget.
Please don't let the questions stop.
Thank you.
If you think of something, or sometimes things come up in Concord, just call me. I'm available 24/7. Yeah, 24, every,
that's free, so.
that's fine. I'm A-okay with that.
What's your cell phone?
My phone, just 4100.
I want 641.
Right.